Hey everybody, it's Rolly. So I am back for day 2 of doing these particular lives where I am talking about the moons and our sun sign and our sun sign, our moon sign, and our rising sun sign. And so there's a lot of conversations yesterday, including in my inbox, to be able to figure out what they are. And one of the things that is really interesting is that people have been noticing where these signs and stuff are. So one of the things that is really important is, in order to be able to get your accurate sun sign, or no, your sun sign is easy. So like that's not based on your date of birth, but then your, I get a horrible echo. I wonder how come. Anybody else getting an echo? Because I'm in the same spot as usual. Anybody else on that is getting an echo? Let me know. So anyway, I'm going to keep going just in case. So let me know if you guys are getting an echo. So but one of the ways that you need to be able to get your other levels is no echo for you. Okay, no echo. So Lonnie, maybe try logging out and coming back in, because I don't know if maybe there's some interference with your phone. But just try maybe doing that and see if that'll help, because I wasn't sure if anybody else was getting it, but other people are not. So so with the, but in order to be able to get your rising sun and your moon sign, you need to know what your date of birth is. So you need to know when you were born in order to be able to get some of that extra information. So that's actually really important to do. And so some people were like, wow, really fascinated with, and I know that I was when I first learned about it, is that these different aspects of yourself are showing up, right? So if somebody would have said that I was like a Leo, it would be like, really? I'm not like a Leo at all, but I can, right? So I can show up, and I do show up, and that's what it is that people see. And those are some of the things that I've heard over the years that people would say to me. It's like, oh my God, you just do this so naturally. And it's like, do you know how challenging this is? Bonjour, Diane. Do you know how challenging it is to just be on the, just being able to go on a live, or to be able to do presentations, or to be able to facilitate a group? It's not something that comes natural to me at all. And there are some people that it does come very natural to them, and kudos to them. But a lot of us, that's not the case. A lot of us, that is definitely a huge struggle and a huge challenge. And so, but being able to understand where you are coming from makes a lot of difference, right? So knowing that I know that I'm in Aries, like you through and through. There's a task that needs to be started. I'm there. I'm ready to get it started. It drives my husband crazy, because it's like, okay, let's go. We need to do this. Let's go. And but then with the Leo sun is like, okay, I can actually just, if there's something that's going on, I can just step up and say, hey guys, this is what's going on, and this is what we need to do. And I have often done that. And and then with my Aquarius moon is that it's a little bit more laid back. I'm a little bit more to the point. My Aries does that too, but like very to the point, just kind of matter of factly, in my head a lot, that kind of thing. So yes, that's what I'm like with my numerology chart. Yeah, so I know that is also something that's really interesting, but I can't learn everything. So and I can't focus on everything, and so that makes things really, really challenging. But when somebody does talk about numerology, it's like, oh, that makes sense. So like today, hello Denise. So So like today, Brooke turns 22. So 22 is a very powerful number and a very powerful year. And so it's actually really cool that that's one of the things. So like in terms of numbers that way, those are definitely ways that I know like that's one of those power numbers. And 11 is another one of those power numbers and that kind of thing. So just really, really interesting on how that part works. So being able to understand, I would love to have my astrology chart reread though, because I wasn't as present with my practice then as I am now. So depending on what it is that they did for your astrology chart, and so if they gave you your birth chart, your natal chart, then that doesn't change. So that doesn't change. What will change is the part that I'm going to be talking about today, is how the daily moons affect us and what the moon phases are. But your actual natal chart that I was talking about yesterday, that never changes. So what I'm going to do is, which is not something that I was going to do, but I'm just going to show you on the chart, on my chart. So hang on a second. And Denise, I got your message the other day to be able to give you the number for the shop. And then and then she and I got busy with people that were coming in, and then I forgot to give her your number. So I will give her your number so that, unless you've already talked to her, because that's also possible. So what I'm going to do is, and of course I'm not going to be able to find it like right then, just because I'm trying to find it. So, so natal chart and transits. So I'm just going to show you an example. So I'm going to use my chart, and I'm going to show you the transits as well as, so like this is why that this is going to be different. So depending on what kind of reading that you got, it may not be different. So I'm going to share my screen. And add. Okay, so but I'm going to go back in here. Okay, so now on my chart is that, so everything that's on the inside, so, and I'm saying because Am's the one that said that she wanted to reread her chart, get her chart reread. And so everything that's on the inside of the chart always stays the same. Like that does not change. And so inside the chart has like, so this is where I was born. This is my moon. This is my ascending. So it's in Leo in my first house. So like none of these and all of these planets that were there when I was born stay there. Like that's when they were born. I mean, that's where I was. Like that's my snapshot. That's my picture. This is my snapshot of today. So like it's actually today's reading. And so what I've asked for is my natal charts and transit. And there's a lot of different things. And I'm again using astro.com. So there's a lot of different things that you can actually use. So now my moon, so the moon is in Taurus right now, right? So, and the moon is showing up in, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the houses tomorrow, but like the moon is in my 10th house. And my sun is in my 12th house, and my so like these are all the other planets. So there's Saturn and Pluto and Sagittarius, and not Sagittarius, but Neptune and Chiron. So Chiron is still in retrograde. And so like all these different planets are here in my, so these ones here are all here. So all of these planets are now on the outside, and this is where they actually are in the world right now. But where they are in the world, it also depends on where it relates to me in which one of the houses. So if your astrology chart was read based on your natal, now if it was based on transitions and what was going on in your life, then that's one of the things. So the oh, you must have come after 5 o'clock then, because we were here till 5 yesterday, 10 to 5 yesterday. But I'll definitely give her your number, Denise. So it's just really important for us to be able to know where does that fit. And so how does that fit and that kind of thing. So like I said, we'll talk about more of the houses tomorrow. So I'll actually share more of that part, but like that's just to show you, so anything on the outside of your chart is where the where things are moving, and where the daily moon is. And so it was a natal chart from my understanding. It kind of looked, and they always look, so like they always look the same. So this one here is with transits. And then it all depends on where you get the chart from. But then I'm just going to go back to the chart. Oh, I can't show you. Hang on, because I didn't share my screen. But I'm going to go back to the chart, and I'm going to show you again. So I'm actually going to do just my natal chart, which is what I showed yesterday. Natal chart wheel. Okay. So I'm going to go back to share my screen. In here, share. Okay, so now see how this is my natal chart. So there's nothing on the outside because I didn't bring in the transits. So the inside still looks exactly the same as it was on the last one. And I should have actually done it too. Actually, hang on, let me just do that. Duplicate. Go back. Just so that I can actually do the comparison so that you can actually see it. So now see how this one here has things on the outside and this one here doesn't have things on the outside. So this here is just my natal chart. And then this one here has my transits. So depending on what it is that you want to be able to do, you can actually do a reading, an astro reading based on what is coming up. So this is one of the things that I do with my my daily planning with my daily moon and figuring out what's going on. So for example, did I change the date? I did. I changed the date to May 22nd, 1970, because I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense because my moon's down in Sagittarius. And so I obviously clicked on a date that brought me back to May 22nd, 1970. So I was only a couple of like not even 2 months old. So, but like this is where the difference is. So like my chart was there. So if I actually go back and change the date to something else, natal progress chart. Oh, that's weird. Why did it take me back to? Took me back to May 22nd for some reason, which is kind of like really weird. That's May 5th, 1970. So I must be clicking on the wrong one just because I'm on live. But like now this one here has moved my moon to here, which is again not where we're at. So, but because my moon's not in Taurus right now. But like if that's what it is that happens, is that your progression will actually go from one different place to the next. So like I said, I'm obviously not clicking on the right one, not paying attention. So, but yeah, it is like super cool. So stop sharing. And, but yeah, so that is kind of takes us away a little bit from the daily moons and the moon phases. But I think that that is something that's really important because like you said, is like, that was one of the things that you had known, like had you have known, it's like I would have like had a different understanding, and you will still have a different understanding even just reading your chart as to what's going on now, just because of where you are in your own journey and that kind of thing, and the things that have actually happened. And there's like so much to do with astrology that really connects us to like if there's certain timelines. And so one of the things that I didn't know, and I only learned that I think probably in the last 6 months, is that one of the things is that I always follow the 7 years, 14 years, 21 years. So like every 7th year, there's something new that's actually going on. And if you actually go and look at some of those on your astrology chart, there's like big, huge events that are actually going on at certain times. And it's not necessarily the 7/14. I'd have to actually go back and look to see what it is that my teacher had taught me about the specific dates, but like there were specific dates that if you actually go back and look at your astrology chart on those times, is that big events happened in your life during that time frame. So it's like, it's so cool. Like, it's just so cool. It just happens the way that it happens. And I just think that it's fascinating. So, but the but one of the things is that there is lots in terms of being able to and you can become overwhelmed. And like one of the things that I said yesterday when I shared is that I've been doing this and learning this for the last 3 years, and there's still so much that I don't know, and there's still so much that I still have to learn. But what I started with was just learning my daily moons and that part there. Like, so I started with the moon phases, then I started with the daily moons, and I combined the daily moons with the moon phases. And when I first started, it was like, okay, I'm only focusing on the daily moons with this stuff, and then I'm only focusing on the moon phases with this stuff. And it just made it so that it was easier for me to be able to manage, as opposed to trying to learn it all at the same time and trying to make it all make sense, because there's just so much. And that's one of the things that I will suggest with people, is that you just start with one part of it. Like, how do you want to focus on where your moon is in your chart? And you're welcome, Am. Where your moon is in your chart, where is it that it's coming up, what's happening, and that kind of thing. So when I'm talking about the daily moon, is that the moon orbits around the Earth. And so when the moon orbits around the Earth, it gives you it moves into different parts of the zodiac signs. So one of the reasons why it is referred to as your menstrual cycle is referred to as your moon cycle, or your moon time, is because it actually follows that cycle of the moon. So you have the new moon, you have the full moon, and then you've got the different phases of the moon. But most people are very familiar with the new moon, full moon. And then some people are familiar with like the first quarter and the last quarter. But then there's other parts in between that has that transition. And so that's kind of what it is that I'm going to talk about today. And so, but with the daily moons, is that it's important to know that it's actually going to go through each one of those zodiac signs every single month. And so so there's fire moons. So fire moons is where there's action taken, and it's when you're feeling more impulsive, and that's a really good time to have to increase initiation and passion, and launching something new. So like if it's going back to school or making that decision to go back to school, that kind of thing. So that's what you're going to do on fire moons. And then you've got your earth moons, and your earth moons is where you're like really focusing on more detail. And then each one of those sections, so like in the fire moon, there's three signs that are in the fire moon. There's 3 signs in the earth moon. There's 3 signs in the air moon, and then there's 3 signs in the water moon. And I'm looking down because I'm wanting to make sure that I'm not forgetting some of those points. And so when you're in the fire moon, that's one of the things that you're going to be doing. So when you're in Aries, or when you're in Sagittarius, or when you're in Leo, that is when you're taking action, that's your doing phases, except for that and again, not focusing specifically on that, but for those people who are already working with the moon, the daily moons, I want to be able to point this out, is that, so fire moons are all about taking action, but then each one, so Aries has one role, and Sagittarius has another role, and Leo has another role. So like there's different things that when they're in those particular daily moons, but at first starting off with, okay, we're in a fire moon, and only focusing on the fact that we're in a fire moon. Going into an earth moon, it's like, okay, so the earth moons are Taurus and Virgo and Capricorn. And so when the moon is daily in those sections, is that there's a way of being able to to connect with those particular energies and those particular things. So for example, Taurus is very much family life oriented, very much wanting to whatever it is that's comfortable, so like the bull, which just kind of just plugs along, that's what the energy from Taurus is. So when you're just kind of plugging along, this is a really good day to be able to just do tedious tasks, because then you tend to get some of those checklists ticked off when you're actually in an earth moon. And then you've got air sign. So air sign is all in your head. So like making decisions is not a good time in an air moon, because like you've got all these different things, but working in an air moon is a really good time for communication. So when you're in air moon, then it allows you to have that better ability to be able to get your messages across and being able to have some insight. But at the same time, depends on what it is that's going on, because it could still be, you could still be challenged with some of those things in the air moon. So Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius are in that moon. So it's a good time for disconnection. It's a really, so during that time is when you may feel restless. And under the water moon is, water moons are always emotional. So when I do the posts that have, okay, well, we're in a fire moon section, and we're in an earth sign, and when we're in a air sign, few people may comment, but when I get to a moon sign and I actually post like, hey, this is a really emotional time, and like there may be some things that are coming up, a lot of people go, oh, that's what's going on with me. Oh, that's what's happening. So it's just really interesting. And that's when I get a lot of comments on those particular posts. Other people just kind of see them and it's like, yep, okay. But when we get into an emotional moon, is that when we're in a water moon, I often get people say, oh my God, I can't believe that is why I'm feeling so crazy. And because those emotional moons really make a difference. And so because I've been sharing the daily moons on a regular basis, and the daily moons change typically between 1.5 to 2.5 days, roughly. It all kind of depends on how quickly that it's moving around, but it usually roughly moves and changes that often. And so one of the things that I've decided to add in those daily posts, those daily moon posts, is that I'm now going to specify specifically. So if we're in a Cancer moon, then I'm going to specify specifically what's going on with Cancer under the water sign, and what, like that kind of thing. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be sharing on my posts. And so I'm really excited to have stuff around that's going to be able to help me get those posts scheduled, and so that they kind of post whenever, because sometimes they happen in the middle of the night. And so on my business page and on Bridging the Gap wellness business page, those two things are going to be on there again. And so they're actually going to post pretty regularly unless we have a glitch with the system, because we are trying out a new system because we've been having some trouble with the one. So we're switching to a different system, a different scheduler, so that they actually go out that way. But it's just really important that as we move and shift through these emotions, or shift through these moons, that different emotions are going to come up for different things that are actually coming on. So in the group, in the Northern Ontario market, I'm actually going to share in there today, like the different kinds of energies. So I'm going to have, so the fire moon, the earth moon, the air moon, and the water moon. So I'm going to have those in there posted. And I'm also going to post information about the phases. And so, and for those of you who are on my email list, you may be getting this twice, because I'm going to be sending an email out. Technically, it'll be Melanie sending an email out that will be sharing this video, yesterday's video, and the preview for tomorrow's video. And but also the this article thing, so you'll actually be able to print it. So if you're on my email list, you get an added bonus because you actually get something that's going to be printable. because I'm going to be sharing it on there. So so you'll actually have something that way, but it gives you that ability of being able to see like what are those different points, what are some of those different signs, so that, and even if you're not really getting into the astrology specifically, or care to know where it is that falls in your chart or anything like that, is that those daily moon posts and those moon phases posts will actually help you to know what is it that's kind of coming up for you right now, because a lot of times it's like, oh, that's what's happening. Oh, that's what's going on. It's like when you are in a I just want to chill and relax phase, is that, and when you're trying to plug away and you're trying to get all these things done, it's kind of like, well, why am I doing that? Like, I'm just completely going against that energy. And obviously there's sometimes we still need to do things, but if we can kind of try and flow things a little easier, it's helpful. So I'm going to start with the two that people are very familiar with. So you've got the new moon and you've got the full moon. So in the new moon, that means new beginnings. So the new moon starts on the 20th of this month. And so there's a lot of different things that people can do. So I know that people are like, oh my God, that's like witchy stuff, or that is, and it could be, that's definitely a possibility. But at the same time, it's a really good place to be able to start with new energy and start with a new project and start with setting a new goal and setting a new intention for the month. What does that month going to look like? And so as you move through the different phases, then that gives you that time. And so the new moon is when you're kind of going inward, where you're actually just kind of thinking about like, what is it that I want to be doing? You're not necessarily taking action at this point. You're just saying, hey, this is what I want. This is what I want to work towards. And so this is a really good time for setting intentions. And then you've got your full moon phase. And again, those are the two that people know. So the full moon or the new moon is when we can't see it. It's completely black and it's darkened out because it is on the other side of the sun. So it's actually hidden by Earth. So it's actually on the other side where we can't see it. So we're seeing what's called the dark side of the moon. And so there's that expression, right? The dark side of the moon. And that's because we can't see what it is that's happening. And then, but then on the full moon, this is when the sun is illuminating the moon. And so on Earth, we can actually see it. And depending on if it's a super moon, which means that the moon is closest to the Earth, or whether it is it's a normal sized moon, or and a lot of times people will talk about like the blue moon, and there's different people will have different information about the blue moon. But the people are like, oh yeah, like it happens every so often or whatever. And so, but a true blue moon happens that in a 4 month or a 3 month period. So like each season is so that within that season, so from one equinox or one solstice to the other, is that if typically there's only 3 moons, 3 full moons, but if there is a 4th one, then that's the blue moon. So some people will be, well, it's the same one then if it happens twice in 1 month, or like there's other different ways of doing it. But where the rare part of it is, because it happens often enough that they're twice in 1 month. So like how rare is it? Like how really of a blue moon is it? But the blue moon is when it happens that there are 4 moons in one cycle. And that's when, so that other one is that blue moon. So just something that I've learned over the years that looks a little bit different than what a lot of people will say. So that's the new moon. So that's when we're starting a new cycle. Then we've got the waxing crescent phase, which is where we're actually setting intentions. So this is when we're actually going to start doing the work and going to kind of put a plan in place. And then that's what we're doing in that first one. And then the first quarter, and again, that's one of those quarter ones. So like there's the 2 main ones, the new moon and the full moon. And then there's the 4, if it's the new moon, the first quarter, the full moon, and the last quarter. So those again are those 4 phases that a lot of people are familiar with. And then, so the waxing crescent phase isn't always necessarily, and one of the people that I follow, one of the astrologers that I follow that has a book, is that the crescent moons and the gibbous moons, she calls them something a little bit different. So, but the names that I stick with is the waxing crescent. And then you've got the first quarter, which is taking action. So the first quarter is like, now it's really time to commit. So like in the, and you're actually moving into that waxing crescent pretty much immediately after the moon, the full moon, I mean the new moon. But one of the things is that I always kind of go like 2 or 3 days afterwards, but because it just gives you that time to really kind of plan out and figure out and going inward and like really having some time to be able to meditate. So some people are like, okay, well, I have to have my intention set on the new moon. And again, it depends on your practice. It depends on where you're learning from, but I don't necessarily do it on that particular day. That day is just a me day and just gives me time to be able to just kind of regroup. And then setting the intention and doing all this, taking all the steps comes like the next day, that kind of thing. So so that's the waxing crescent. And then the first quarter is where you're taking action. So like now it's time to get to work. You're really trying to plug away, and you may have done stuff over the last few days, but this is when you're really trying to get those things done and getting that part of things done. And then the next phase after that is the waxing gibbous. So that one there is where you're like kind of fine tuning. So what's not quite worked, or like in my plan, what is it that's not quite worked? Because when you're setting a plan or when you're setting goals, is that you need to have them actionable. And sometimes, especially depending on what moon that we're in, is that we have like this grand idea of all the things that we want to be able to do, but it's not possible to get them all done in the month. And so then we have to maybe take a step back and kind of figure out, okay, well, let's rejig this so that, okay, like this is I'm going to do this one in 3 months instead of like 1 month. And so that you can actually fine tune and kind of refine. If it's working, then just keep going, right? So keep going. You know that you're on track. Just kind of stay the course and fix that and keep going. And then it goes into the full moon. So after that phase, you're going into the full moon, and then so in the full moon path part is like, this is where a lot of times we might want to just give up, right? So this here it's a make it or break it. So this is where we might be going like, oh my God, I don't know that I can do this. But go in and pick out all those little things that you've actually been able to accomplish, because that part there is like super important. So what is it in there that you can pick out? And then the waning gibbous is where you're feeling grateful. So like really tapping into gratitude. What are all the things that have come together? What are all the things that have happened? And so like same as with the new moon, this phase just kind of starts to come out like very quickly shortly after. And again, I do 2 or 3 days before I start getting into this phase. And it's just because then it gives me time to be able to stay in that full moon energy, because it's pretty intense a lot of times when you're in those full moon or those new moon energies, that I don't just immediately just say, okay, well, tomorrow I jump in and I jump ship and I move to the next stage. Is that I allow myself to stay in that phase a little bit longer. But technically we're immediately moving out of those as soon as because the moon starts moving all the way through, right? So it doesn't stay still. But one of the teachings that I've had is that the full moon and the new moon energy is always, there's 3 days before, 3 days after. So if I can't do something right on the new moon or right on the full moon, then I know that I've got this energy that I can kind of shift with and play with a little bit without having to have that rigid. And moving with the cycles is that it's not rigid. And that's the part that's really important for us to be able to remember, is it's not rigid. We need to make sure that we're shifting those kinds of things. And so then the last quarter is the release. So this is where we're actually letting go, right? So whatever it was, and I don't mean like giving up kind of letting go, but we need to know, did it work? Did it not work? Is it, so this is where we're looking for reevaluating and trusting. And so sometimes we have to be able to just say to the universe, okay, I've given it to you. I've taken all the steps that I need to, and there's nothing else that I can do with it. Now it's time for me to just be able to say, okay, I just need to trust. I need to trust to let things happen the way that they're going to happen. And then the very last phase is the waning crescent, and that's when we release, right? So where we surrender, sorry, release is the last phase, or the other phase. So when we surrender, and it all again depends on our belief system and what we believe and what we don't believe, that kind of thing, is that there is that surrender, and that surrendering is understanding that there is a power that's bigger than us. So whatever that looks like for us, it doesn't necessarily mean it could be God, it could be the universe, it could be angels, it could be spirits, it could be whatever, it could be your ancestors. Whatever it is that is that you're actually surrendering to that power. You're saying, okay guys, take over, because like I've done all of my part, so now you're just taking over, and you're actually getting ready to move into the new moon again. And at this point, you're also trying to figure out, am I ready to move to the next level, like, or do I have to kind of go back and start again? So do I need to, am I going to be taking part of what it is that I had already worked on and kind of moving forward? And the one part that's really important for us to be able to remember is that even if we have to start over, we're not starting from scratch. We're starting from, this is where things were. So that's one of the things that is really important for us to be able to remember, is that we are never starting from scratch. So no matter, even if we had to scrap a project and we have to start over again and do something different, or we're heading down a different path, is that we are never starting from the beginning. So the beginning was the day that we were born. And as we continue to move through all these different things, consciously or unconsciously, is that we are never starting from the same point that we started last month. We are never starting from the same point that we started last year. We're always starting from being able to have the knowledge. Even if we have to take a few steps back, we're still always starting with that knowledge. So that is what it is that I wanted to be able to share with you guys today. So tomorrow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be talking about how to put it all together. So we've got all these little pieces, and like I said, being able to kind of take everything all at once. We don't want to be focusing on everything. We want to be able to take these little parts, and how can we actually implement it so that it actually works for us. And so I'm going to talk more about that tomorrow. And I'm also going to talk about the void moons, because I didn't talk about the void moons today. So in tomorrow, I'm going to talk about where they fit in our houses, how to be able to put it together, and I'm going to talk about what the void of course moon is, and how that impacts us and affects us as well. So I will chat with you guys all later. If you guys are on my email list, you guys are going to be getting a replay of this video, as well as that document that you'll be able to, that article, so that you'll be able to print it off. And you'll get a preview link for tomorrow's video. So I will chat with all of you guys later, and thanks for listening, and I love the conversation. So if you guys have any more questions, then definitely let me know. Chat later. Bye for now. See ya.